Welcome back to Her Birth, Her Story, where we share real birth experiences. I'm Brick, your host, and on today's episode, I'm sitting down with Brittany, who is a mom of 3, getting ready to be 4 very soon. And her births go through kind of a progression of hospital to home birth, and you can see how in every single birth, she learns something new. She is a self-proclaimed birth nerd. You can see how she used that knowledge to help her have better experiences each time. We also get into the importance and role of her doula and how she is preparing for this pregnancy and this birth. So I am so excited for her to be on here and for us to hold space for her story. Hi, Brittany. Thanks for coming on Her Birth, Her Story. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself for us?
Yeah, hi, I'm Brittany Kovacs. I am 28 weeks pregnant with baby number 4, and I've had 3 very different birth experiences, and I didn't even realize it until I was talking to Brooke getting ready for this, but my birth stories kind of like evolve and grow into more of what I originally wanted, but I had to get brave first in the hospital setting, and I've just learned so much each time. And so when I saw a friend of mine speak on the podcast, I was like, I want to do that too, and just empower moms to hear different versions of hospital births that went the way I kind of wanted them to, and what I've learned along the way, and now had my 3rd and hopefully prayerfully my 4th at home as well.
That is amazing. I love that you also call yourself a birth nerd. I love that so much, just because maybe I kind of consider myself a little bit more of a birth nerd too, but where do you think that started for you?
Yeah, so my degree is in human development and family studies. And so my sophomore year of college, I saw Ricky Lake's The Business of Being Born. And I feel like that really stemmed it for me. It was my first kind of exposure to the birth world. I didn't have anyone in my family have home births or be in that world. And so It was the first time that I was like, oh my gosh, like that makes so much sense. And if you're not familiar with that documentary, I don't want to ruin it for you, but she kind of walks you through how interventions and inductions and the hospital system is really created to crank them out, to turn and burn, to have this baby before the shift change and not be at the hospital all day on a holiday, and how one intervention at the hospital oftentimes can lead to those emergency C-section situations. And so I really went on a journey then for the next 10 plus years because, sophomore of college, I was 19, 20 and had my first kid at 27, 28. And so just really went on this journey of wanting to know more information so that if I was in that setting, I could ask the right questions and know what my options were versus just kind of trusting like, hey, we're going to put this Foley bulb in and we're going to start a Pitocin drip. And you're like, wait a second, what? Can I try some of these things first? And so that's my heart behind empowering other moms to know what their options are. Now, I have friends that schedule inductions and that's what they want to do. And they're like, I don't really want to hear what my options are. Birth is such an important piece of our journey as women, and birth trauma is real, and birth experiences will be carried on with you for many years to come. And so I really want to educate and empower moms to know what their options are so that they are making those options, making those choices, and they're not being done to them instead.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And especially, I think it's great that you were already kind of exposed to that early on so that then you could do that and look into these things too and be empowered. And now you can use that to help empower other women. And I think that is amazing. So that documentary, how do you think that shaped your expectations going into your first birth?
Yeah, so my first birth, my husband and I took 12 weeks worth of Bradley method classes. I wanted to go in with more knowledge. I wanted to get my husband on the same page, which is something I see a lot as well. Like the husbands just don't understand, and then they're stressed out because their wife's stretched out. And if you've ever been in labor, there's a certain part where you kind of, clock out and your husband has to make some choices for you, or your partner. And so I really wanted him to be, more educated than the average dad walking into labor and delivery. And so we did that. And I actually did end up needing Pitocin with my first birth. And so we were able to try, I woke up, my water broke. I was 39 and 2, I think. And looking back, I think there's a million things I would change, right? And so that's why each one of my birth stories kind of got a little bit different. And I grew a little bit more in standing up for myself and making those choices. But my first one, it's scary. You're like, this is the first time I've ever done this. It might be the only time I ever do it. And we got to the hospital, my water was broke. And they wanted to start Pitocin right away. And we're like, yo, can we try a couple things first? And we tried all the things and wasn't, dilating, wasn't progressing. And when you're in a hospital setting, that clock starts ticking, right? And so because I had the information to know my choices and know my options, we did decide to do Pitocin. And I was glad that I had that information and that education, because I think prior to, and I also was texting my Bradley Method instructor in the heat of the moment, because I went in before my Bradley Method education thinking like, oh, Pitocin's the devil, like I don't want Pitocin at all, but it's like Pitocin's better than C-section. And so it's like, all right, let's give my body that first intervention and then give it time to react to the intervention. I see so often it's like, oh, well, we did this and then that got stalled. Or if you did the epidural, well, now your dilation is not progressing. And so it's really that cascade of interventions that causes the problems. And so we were like, we're only going to do Pitocin. We don't want to talk about anything else until we give this, several hours to kind of do its job. So I was glad that I had that information going in and knew my options and the pros and cons of waiting a little longer versus starting the drip now and all those things, because I feel like if I just went in, started the pit right away, my body wasn't ready, then it would have been like, well, now the pit's not doing anything, let's try this. That's when things really start. It's too much on your body, it's too much on your baby. Then the baby starts showing, symptoms of distress, and they're like, we got to get this baby out, and then it becomes that emergency situation.
Yeah, no, that's really good, and I love that you already had knowledge going into it, because the difference, it's not the fact that you got Pitocin, because I think too many times too, we think that if you get any intervention, anything, then it's automatically a failure. It's automatically, well, it's not what I wanted. Well, okay, but there are places and purposes for these. But if you're educated and you can see the full picture, and then you can make that choice of, yes, let's try this, but also knowing that you can say no at any time, you can say stop at any time too, and I just think that that's really important that people understand too. Just because you get Pitocin, or just because you get the epidural, or just because you get some intervention does not make it a failure, does not make it, as in my birth plan or whatever, all went out the window. No, you still have options, you still have choices.
Yeah,
so
for sure. Those tools all exist for a reason, right? It's just, I think in modern society, we've gotten too used to kind of having things go a certain way, and if by this hour this isn't happening, they've gotten a little too comfortable in using some of those things. So, but there is a time and a place for everything in the birth space.
Yeah, and we just live in such a fast-paced society too, that instead of, birth isn't something that needs to be rushed, especially if it's not something that's an emergency, relax a little bit. Okay, so now I'm just gonna let you kind of jump right into your first birth story, and if there's any background information or anything like that that's important for us to know, go ahead and share that, but I'm just gonna let you share uninterrupted.
Awesome. Yeah, so my first birth was a hospital birth. We planned for a hospital birth. Something else that I'm passionate about is due dates being silly. I was just talking to one of my friends on Instagram. She was like, I'm 6 days over. And I was like, well, do you have a longer cycle? You probably ovulate late, whatever, whenever you think you got pregnant, add however many days late you ovulate to that, whatever. She's had her baby now, all is well. But I think so often we think about that birth or that due date being an expiration date. And it's like, well, I'm 1 over now and I got to make these choices. So I was mentally preparing to go 42 weeks. I think we learned in my Bradley Method classes that is it 41 and 5 or 41 and 2 or something is the average gestation. And so I just blocked out my due date and I was prepared to go, longer. Well, my water broke 5 days early. So I was 39 and 2 with my first birth. And I just kept joking, it could be tomorrow, it could be 2 weeks from now. And then, lo and behold, I woke up and my water was completely ruptured. And so we got a shower and got ready and head to the hospital. And I already shared a little bit about needing Pitocin with that birth, but My water broke at like 6 a.m. when I got out of bed that morning. I ended up at the hospital around 9 something probably, and they wanted to, start some things right away. And I was like, let's try some things. So we did squats, I was dancing, I was walking the aisles, I was doing all the things. So about 6 p.m., we decided to go ahead and start the Pitocin, and I wasn't feeling anything at all, like no contractions, no pain. I was like just hanging out with my husband and my doula and just having a good old time. And then all of a sudden it was like, rearing up. And so the Pitocin was doing its job and baby was great and all was well. And there's some regrets in this first one. So I remember it was around Easter time, so spring break. I was worried about my doctor being out of town and all that kind of stuff, but anyone can catch babies, y'all. Like, don't plan things around your doctor being in town or not. And so it was getting late into the evening. We hadn't called my birth photographer or anything yet. We're just like, I don't think anything's going to happen until morning. And then all of a sudden things started picking up really good. One of the nurses was beside me charting, and I had kind of like zoned out. I remember I had a blanket like that I was just like holding, and I was just like zoned out, so quiet. And the nurse was beside me charting something, and she looks over and she goes, "Are you bearing down?" And I was like, I don't know what that means, but I think so. Like, she could hear me moaning and grunting with each. And she's like, we need to check you. And so baby was coming. And this is one of my regrets. My doctor wasn't in the building, and so they wanted me to lay sideways with my legs together, even though my body was ready to give birth. And so that resulted in my son having a huge hematoma, like very, very much cone-shaped, because he was up against my cervix ready to come out for 30-40 minutes until my doctor got there. So that was like huge regret looking back. And I wish my doula was actually one of my best friends. It was like her second or third birth. So I kind of wish someone would have said something like, what are we doing? Like, let her have this baby. But we were all just kind of first timers, right? And so did that. And then bless my husband, again, going back to Pitocin being the devil, we were like, okay, it did its job. Can we turn it off now? My husband says that. I'm like in the heat of the moment, like, I'm not making any decisions at this point. And my husband says, the Pitocin got her to where it needed to. Would it be cool if we turn it off now? We don't want her and the baby to have more than they need, whatever. He doesn't know from Adam. He's a construction carpenter, okay? And so they're like, yeah, we can do that. They turn off my Pitocin and all contractions stop. They were like, we've never seen this before. Like, I was fully dilated, I was bearing down, baby was coming, and then I couldn't, like, no epidural, like I should have been able to feel everything. All contractions stop. And they're like, well, we can see the head, like baby's right there. And so it was very late. He was born at like 12:24 a.m. So like we're heading into like middle of the 11 o'clock hour. They turn the Pitocin off and I have no contractions. And they're like, well, he's going to have to be born on mommy power. So just whenever I wanted, I was pushing. And it was like the most weird experience because I had went from feeling productive contractions to just like chilling with a bunch of pressure, but like no contractions. My stomach completely stopped contracting. My uterus completely stopped contracting. And so he was born, an hour later. I pushed for about an hour, just doing whatever I could, And then I remember one of the nurses saying, like, I can tell your pushes are more productive when you make noise. So go ahead and make noise. So that was the first time I kind of let myself like grunt and moan and do those kind of things that we see sometimes in birth videos. And I broke like all of my blood vessels in my neck because I was just like pushing. Not good. So that was my first birth. He was great. He was born. We didn't know gender. We never find out gender. So that was fun. It was a boy. And he was born with clubfoot. So if anyone listening is familiar with clubfoot, it is a congenital birth defect, 1 in 1,000. Both feet were affected. And so we did not know. It did not show up in my anatomy scan. So that was kind of a thing. But he was fine. He was healthy. We did stay in the hospital an extra day for that hematoma. Caused by the nurse that asked me to close my legs. That was like one of my biggest regrets in that experience, was just not sticking up for myself and saying, this baby's coming and somebody in this room is capable of catching him.
Wow, that is absolutely insane. It's like, that just honestly makes me
I hear it
mad.
all the time now too. Like you're like waiting for the doctor, or like don't push yet, or like them saying go ahead and start pushing. Like that's one thing that should be so intuitive to you. Like baby's coming out or baby's not ready, and so when someone says start pushing when you're not ready, that's when you hear so-and-so pushed for 3 hours or whatever. So yeah, turning off the Pitocin, it's a joke now that my husband made that choice. But he just learned, little is better and whatever we need, and we were there, and then we weren't.
Yeah. And at least he was like trying to be like a good advocate for you too.
Absolutely.
Like his heart behind it was like he didn't want you to have more of an intervention than what was needed. So that's at least nice that his heart and mind were in the right place. But no. What would you say was the most empowering part of that experience?
Just being able to wait for the Pitocin and ask, like, what are the risks of waiting? What are the benefits of starting now? And knowing that, like, I don't remember if he had like a blip where they're like, oh, his heart rate decreased, we got to get him out. And that was when we ultimately decided to go ahead and start the Pitocin. But just, again, having that education versus like arriving at the hospital and hearing like, oh, let's get hooked up to the IV. Because I remember part of my birth plan that was written down was like, no continuous IV if not needed. Like in my second birth, I didn't even get it put in. And so I was glad that I was able to ask those questions and delay that time and give myself a chance. And that was just empowering in that moment. Even though we ended up needing some of those tools, it was just nice to know that they had given me that option.
Yeah, I think that's great. And, a lot of times when I talk to moms, their first pregnancy, their first birth, when they have their second, they always look back and they're like, oh, I wish I was more educated. Did you feel like you were like educated and prepared for your first?
I felt super prepared, but there's only so much you can know from book knowledge until you're in the heat of the moment and know what your body is going to do. I mean, I have my chiropractor. I mean, she's a chiropractor. She wanted a home birth. She got all the things and she ended up in the hospital. Like, you just never know what your body's going to do. You never know what your baby's going to do. You never know if you've got a short umbilical cord or anything can happen. And again, that's why interventions in hospital and modern medicine is great when it's needed. Yep. But most people don't need it and just rely on it for, XYZ.
Yeah, no, that's really good. What'd you learn from this birth that you decided to do differently for your next birth?
Well, first of all, I did not bounce on a birth ball for 1,000,000 hours the week of my I honestly, I don't know if I can, but I feel like I broke my water. Like, I was not ready to have that baby. He was not ready to come out. We had some breastfeeding issues, which we'll talk about another time, but I just feel like he needed another week in my belly. And so I did not sit on a birth ball a lot at the end of my second pregnancy. I very much was just like, this baby's coming when this baby's ready. Like, I kind of slowed down on purpose at the end of my pregnancy, whereas my first, I was, still working and doing all the things until my water broke. So just like, babies come when babies are ready, and sometimes they're not ready. And so that was one of the things I changed. And then I went over with my second. So that just like was a different experience altogether. But yeah, I feel like I just slowed down and was like, all right, I was so excited to meet my baby in the first one. And then I was like, all right, excited to meet the baby as well, but also just like letting my body do what it needs to do and not doing the spicy foods and the birth ball and all the things that are like, what else can I do to get this baby out of me?
Yeah, no, just like I said earlier too, I just feel like we're all so like impatient too. And sometimes though, like doctors and depending on like your provider, sometimes they make it seem like it has to be a rush and you have to hurry and do all of these things. So then you're trying to like induce labor naturally because you're like, well, if they're going to try to induce me or they're going to try to do this, then I have to do X, Y, Z. And really just take a deep breath. I know you're excited to meet your baby. Everybody I feel like is so excited to meet their baby, but it is not worth it because sometimes it just leads to the cascade of interventions and then your safety and the baby's safety could be in more harm's way than good.
Absolutely.
So now let's just jump right into your second birth story.
Yeah. So second one, I went 5 days over, which was the longest 5 days of my life. It was, well, my first one was 5 days early. So second one was 5 days late. So it was like a 10-day window of like, this baby's coming. No, it's not. And at the end of your pregnancy, you kind of stop planning things and you stop putting things on your calendar because you're like, I'm probably gonna have a baby. And then it was like twiddling my thumbs. I remember driving across town to a cheer competition just to get out of the house. I was like, I need people and I need to get out of the house and just go live my life because who knows when this baby's coming. So my second birth was textbook, everything I could have ever wanted, even a little bit better and different in ways than my home birth. And so it was middle of the night, 2 a.m. I woke up with some like period-like cramps. And I had my, my app on my phone where I'm kind of tracking those and feeling a little tension here, kind of relaxed, trying to go back to sleep. because, we had had a million of those where it's like, is this labor? Is this not? Is it Braxton Hicks? Is the baby coming? And I remember trying to wake my husband up, and he just kind of was like not having it. He's like, yeah. Because we had done this, for 10 days now. And then I woke him up again, and I was like, no, I really think that something feels different. Again, we're in middle of the night. So he got a shower. We called my father-in-law, who lived across town, to come sit with our now almost 2-year-old. And he took forever to get there. I was like, I'm having this baby in the kitchen, because it just went like 0 to 100. Like my body was doing it this time, which I forgot to mention this in the first, but I remember feeling like Pitocin contractions are not of your body. It is your body, like it's an out of body experience. It's like there's no control over them. There's very little rest in between them. Whereas this felt very much like, this is my body. My body's doing what I need to do. It was so empowering to be like, my body's doing it. Like, because I think sometimes we're like, whatever our first birth looked like, that's what we're going to need every time. I needed this, I needed Pitocin, I needed a cesarean, whatever it is. Like, we kind of just set ourselves up that way. And so I was like, my body's doing it. Like, I'm having productive contractions. And it was so intense. And I remember just like, come on, Dad, like, when are you going to get here? And so he arrived. We had like a 7 to 10 minute drive to the hospital. And I remember just like pushing my body off of the seat and just like holding on and just like being in it. We, barely got to triage. My doctor barely got there. I don't even know if she got her scrubs on. It was like textbook, first contraction 2 a.m. He was born at 6:13 a.m. Like very beautiful. Loved it. Didn't have an IV, didn't need anything. Because he was over, we had everyone come in. He did have a little bit of meconium, but I mean, he was healthy, 9 pounds, 1 ounce, like beautiful, hairy little baby boy. And he did great. He was during the pandemic. So he was born March 2nd of 2020. We had like 1.5 normal weeks, and then the whole world shut down. That one ended up with a tongue and lip tie. He was very chunky, and I had a great supply. And so for the first couple weeks, I didn't really notice it. And then again, we're going to do a breastfeeding one too, so I don't have to get too much into that. But that was an interesting season because you're just in your bubble figuring it out. I didn't even go to my postpartum checkup because I'm like, for what? Like everything was virtual. I'm like, what are you going to tell me over Zoom? So we were just in the thick of like hunkered down for that season. But yeah, his birth was textbook. If I could do that, if I could ask for this birth to be anyway, it would be for that second one. It was just like beautiful. I wasn't stressed about it. My body was relaxed. My body woke me up doing what it needed to do. And then he was born before the sun rose that morning. So it was beautiful.
That's awesome. So what was the final factor that encouraged you to switch from a hospital birth to a home birth for your next one?
Yeah. First of all, the pandemic. I had a lot of friends, like if I had given birth 3 weeks later, I probably would have switched to a home birth, at 39 weeks pregnant, just because I didn't want to, I have friends that gave birth wearing masks, and I just could not fathom being in that space and being like, put this on, or, Dad's not allowed in the room, like absolutely not. And so I had friends that year that switched to home birth that were planning to have hospital births. And I think I just needed somebody to go first that I knew. And I was like, all right, this is great. And then obviously my second birth being so textbook and my body figuring it out, I was like, all right, I got this. And I have friends that had their first at home as well. So that is not to say that you need a hospital birth before you can have a home birth. That was just kind of something that I was like, I grew up in a very small town, like one hospital, and that hospital doesn't even deliver kids anymore. Like my friends from back home have like a 45-minute to an hour drive to get to a birthing hospital. And so I think just the more empowered, lack of another word, the more empowered I was of success stories of like, okay, people I actually know are having healthy babies at home. That was just, why would I go back into the hospital setting?
Yeah, no, that's really good. Did you have to prepare any differently with your third than you did with your first and second since it was a home birth, or not really?
I had different tools and things that I had to purchase for my home. The prenatal care for a home birth versus a hospital birth is night and day. You see the reels of like the mom waddling in, and you get on the scale, you get your blood pressure, they check the baby's heart rate, and they send you on your way. Like literally that is my experience with OBGYN hospital or, birth care. And my home birth experiences are an hour long. You're building a relationship with this midwife. She's going to come into your home. She's going to be playing with your children while you are in labor and just coexisting with you. And so it's really a different situation than just like in and out of a hospital. And so that was night and day different, and a very welcomed change to just feel heard. And I'm an extrovert, so just having that relationship of knowing like this person's going to come into my home for a 24-hour period and see me in a very vulnerable state and coexist with my family and make me a meal before she leaves or whatever, the cleanup, just being coexisting. Like I mean, my birth team with my home birth, we had dinner together before I was like in active labor and just like coexisting.
No, I definitely agree with that too. I think that what midwives bring, especially, you have to obviously pick the right one that's best for you, because whether it's a doctor, a nurse, a home birth midwife, or whatever, you still have to make sure that they are going to work hand in hand with you. But I also agree that the difference with the prenatal care and even the postpartum care too, like immediately after having your baby at home, I just think it just like makes me want to have more babies and have that experience over and over and over again, because it is so beautiful. You're not just a number, like you almost feel like you're the only one in their care, and like it's just amazing. It makes me like, I mean, you so literally
giddy. You are the only one in their care. And when you're in labor at the hospital, a nurse might have 2 or 3 moms kind of in different spaces of labor or whatever, and they're in and out. And, alone time is great, but it was really just nice to be like, they're watching your every move and they can tell, like, are you in transition? Like, is that feeling different? Like, and it's just like so cool to feel seen in that way.
Yeah. And they just too care, like for your prenatal, they don't just do like the series of checkups, like they're also like asking you, how are you emotionally, how are you spiritually, like what can I do to support you in this way, have you been drinking enough water, have you been eating X amount of protein, those kind of things too. I think every single mom, no matter where you birth, you should be getting like those questions, because birth is an event that changes your life, and it should be treated like that, as something that is valuable and sacred. And in the hospital, not all hospitals, I'm sure there are great ones out there too, but from my experience and just talking with others too, it just feels like that's what's missing from a lot of hospital experiences.
For sure.
So let's go ahead and just jump right into your first home birth story.
Yeah. So she actually was a due date baby. My water broke on my due date. And so I always joke, because baby number 4, I'm like, I am not even going to speculate what's happening, because I've got the 5 days early, 5 days late, and the due date baby. It was middle of December. My water broke midday, and I wasn't feeling any contractions at all. So I was like, great, like, similar to my first. I remember we walked around the block. The kids were riding their bikes. Like it didn't have snow. It was kind of chilly. I live in the Midwest, but we spent a lot of time walking and just trying to get things started. And I don't remember if it was my doula and my husband. Somebody had made the call, well, Brittany has a high pain tolerance, so should we just like come check her out? Like, let's just come check her out. So, people started arriving. I had my doula, my photographer, and my midwife. I had a second midwife as well that she was bringing along. And so it was evening at that point, and we all ordered Thai, and we're just like sitting around hanging. Again, the extrovert in me was like, this is a party. Like, we all were working really well together. And something else that is an educational empowerment thing is like cervical checks are optional. And so I really like to empower moms having hospital births. Like nobody needs to get in there unless you want them to. And I've heard of so many stories of people getting a cervical check and the doctor doing a membrane sweep without consent. And like, that is just so foul. So, I'm kind of anti-cervical check, but I also am like, is anything going on down there? So my midwife checked me, and I think I was like 1 or 2, like hardly anything. So the midwives actually left and went shopping. And I did a, what's it called? Castor oil smoothie. And my midwife said that castor oil only works, this is a disclaimer, it only works if your water is broken and it is not your first birth. So if you're doing all the things at the beginning, trying to induce labor, like the spicy foods and the birth ball and all that, castor oil will just make you poop your brains out if your body's not ready. So my water was broken, and it was my 3rd birth. So we went ahead and did that. It was 8:30 p.m. The midwives actually left to get reprieve and remove themselves from the situation a little bit. And this is where my doula was like priceless. And I kind of wrote this when we were pre-talking. All 3 of my births were very differently supported. Obviously, I didn't need much in the second one. But my doula for my home birth was absolutely priceless, especially allowing the midwives to leave, but still having what I felt like was a birth professional on staff.
Yeah.
She was actually pregnant at the time too, but she took me through the mile circuit, and that was something that I wasn't super familiar with. Between that and the castor oil smoothie, like labor started, and it was like so cool. Again, with my first birth having my water broken, and the water broke early here too, but just knowing that there were options outside of the hospital space that were also going to get me, get my baby to me in a safe manner. So that was really empowering to me. So 9:30, an hour later, I could start feeling the contractions pick up. I remember I wrote down here that I did not want my oldest touching me during that time, and he had kind of not left my side that whole time, which was really cool too, to just have the other kids involved. At this point, my second kid was to bed, but my oldest stayed up with me the entire time, which was really cool. He was joking that he was going to cut the umbilical cord, but he was, how old was he? 4.5 at the time. Aww. He chickened out once it was out, and he was like, nope, I'm going to bed. He actually left and went to bed right after she was born.
Wow.
But he never left my side. He was dead set on cutting the umbilical cord. Yeah. It was really cool to watch birth videos with him and just mentally prepare him to see what he's going to see and hear what he's going to hear. And I was just talking to my husband. My youngest now is 3.5. And she's very much still obsessed with me. And so I was just talking to my husband about I need to start getting her prepared to, mommy's going to make these noises. There might be a little bit of blood, everything's going to be fine. Kind of getting her ready to be in that space with me. So that was 9:30 p.m. Around 11:15, we were joking that I didn't have much time left to have a due date baby. And then it was transition happened. So I was wow, need to go to the bathroom, super uncomfortable, all that kind of stuff. And so she was born also just after midnight at 12:17. My husband got to catch her, which was super cool. Ooh. So I birthed on my hands and knees. I did not do a water birth. Again, I mentioned earlier, my husband is a carpenter. And so he actually put plastic flooring down on half of our bedroom. They were saying it looked like our bedroom was Dextered because he the whole thing was plastic flooring with painter's tape around it. Yeah. But it was the easiest cleanup ever. They were like, we love this.
Yeah.
So I did not have a water birth. Ended up birthing on hands and knees. I sat on the birth stool for a little bit. That was an interesting experience, but it really opens you up down there and got everything ready to go. I actually started pushing when I was standing up, and I was like, don't like this, don't like this. I just felt like the baby's going to fall 3 feet to the floor, and went to my hands and knees, and it was a girl. So we have boy, boy, girl. So that was a really magical experience. This is, it's kind of glared. I don't know if you can tell. So this is my oldest breastfeeding, and then this is right after my second was born, and then this is right after my third's born, but the glare is bad from my ring light. But it was a girl. It was so funny. My husband caught her from behind and then passed her up through the middle of my legs, and he kept saying, I think it's a girl. He was saying, I think it's a girl. And the umbilical cord was between her legs, and so he was like, I didn't see a penis, and then he pulled her legs apart and moved the umbilical cord, and we're like, it's a girl. And the pictures from that moment are just so you couldn't get our faces any more surprised and happy, because his family is very boy heavy, and we already had 2 boys. And so there, if you've ever considered going team green, there's nothing quite like that surprise. So
yeah, let's touch on that a little bit too. What was that like? What's the anticipation and how, because a lot of people are very opinionated about that. How did you kind of deal with people?
Yeah, no, people are very passionate about it for sure. I always used to joke that it kept me from buying things. If I knew that I had a little girl when I was pregnant, I would have bought so many things. And the second you have a little girl, there's hand-me-downs and bows on your porch. You do not need to buy everything. And I remember I have friends that have a girl first and buy hot pink everything. We got the pink bouncer, we got the pink wraps, we got the pink jumpers, and then you have a boy and you need all of that again. And so it really just I am by no means a minimalist. Our house is a wreck, but it kept us buying gender neutral things that were going to go on with us each kid. Car seats, jumpers, our nursery is a mint green, and we put pops of pink in now that there's a girl in there. But that is just a practical thing that really, all of our newborn to 0 and 3 is all gender neutral. And again, as soon as I had that little girl, people brought me pink and purple, everything you could ever need. So that was just a practical thing. But there aren't many surprises in life, and there's nothing quite we talk about gender disappointment, or I really wanted it to be, or siblings being disappointed. Yeah. When you have a healthy baby on your chest, there's no room for gosh, I wish you were something else. Yeah. And so that's really cool too. We have one of each now, or we have 2 boys and a girl. We actually considered finding out with this one just for funsies, because we have never. Yeah. And so I was kind of bringing it up I was struggling a lot. Even though I've had 4 healthy babies, or, 3.5 healthy babies, I've never had a miscarriage. I've never, God, thank you, ever had that. The anxiety those first 15, 18 weeks is just like, every day you're like, are you sure there's a baby in there?
Yeah.
I throw up a lot when I'm pregnant, the first 18 weeks. And anytime I had a window of like no nausea, I'm like, surely the baby's gone. Like, it's just like and I don't struggle with anxiety outside of that, but it's just getting emotional, even thinking about it. There's so many unknowns when you're pregnant. And so
Sure.
there was a season of like, I think if I found out if it was a boy or girl, I'd be able to connect more with the baby. And so we were toying with it this time. And we're halfway through. My husband kept saying, I can't believe we're even thinking about it. Like, this might be our last baby. Like, why would you do that? And so we're halfway through the anatomy scan, 25, 30 minutes in, and my husband goes, do you want to find out gender? And I was like, we are not discussing this on the spot right now. So we actually have the gender of this baby in an envelope sealed in our safe upstairs. Ooh. And we have not opened it because I was not going to make an emotional decision while the probe was on my stomach.
Yeah.
And I was like, we need to talk about this more. And so it's like a joke now. And some of my friends are like, I have no idea how you have the self-control to not go look. And I'm like, I don't think that I would regret. I'm not going to regret not finding out, but I think I might regret finding out at this point because I have had, 3 where I didn't find out.
Yeah.
I guess we're going to let the kids open it up after the baby's born and see if it matches. But
Ooh, that's fun.
It's been really fun to not know. The kids all want a girl because they want it to be 2 boys and 2 girls. But, a healthy baby would just be the biggest blessing for sure.
Yeah. Babies don't need pink things or blue things to survive. Like, it's not like that at all. So looking back at your home birth as a whole, what was the most empowering part of it?
Honestly, I loved my mom when I first told her that I was having a home birth was very sketched out by that. And so again, my daughter was born in December. So over Thanksgiving break, I made her watch all of the documentaries with me. We watched Born at Home. We watched The Business of Being Born, all the spinoffs, because I wanted her to have a little bit of education and empowerment going in. And so that was the coolest thing, just getting to expose my kids to that, expose my parents to that, because then my mom was actually who pointed out what you had said earlier about I was their only patient. They were all eyes on me for the whole time they were here. Whereas in a hospital setting, you've got doctors in and out and different specialists and all different things. So that was really empowering. Wow. My husband getting to catch the baby and my son getting to see what birth looks like and my parents getting to see nobody died, everyone survived, everyone's healthy. That was really cool. And just getting to kind of coexist because my parents were not at my first and second birth. So that was kind of, I think that was probably the coolest thing is just hey guys, look, we did this thing as a family and everyone's okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like that's, especially for people that do choose to do a home birth or even unmedicated, a lot of times the whole reason why people are so negative about it is just because they do not understand, they do not know, and they don't take the time to really try to know. So, and people obviously are very passionate on either side of it as well, and I get that, but it's always a lot of moms. And I get it from a mom perspective of you just want your kid to be safe. It's your grandchild too, and you want them to be safe. But if they really meet the midwives, meet the people that are taking care of you, they actually watch it and they can see midwives are educated. They do understand. They know when things are turning into an emergency and there's a plan in place. It's not just somebody showing up and you just heaving out a baby and see ya. It's a lot more intimate than that. And so I love that your mom was even open to learning and you were able to have her there and not have to kick her off of your birth team because of any negativity and stuff.
Yep, for sure. No, it was definitely a full circle healing moment and having everyone here in that space. Yeah.
I love that. And you had said how your doula was just the key piece, just something that you didn't know, her support, you didn't know that you needed that. Can you just talk, and I know you already kind of mentioned it, but can you talk what about her being there was so the game changer for your home birth?
Yeah. I love talking about doulas and what they get to do, because I have so many friends who are kind of that in between, like they're wanting an unmedicated birth, but they like the security of the hospital. And I'm like, you have to have a doula. Like the midwife is the medical professional, but the doula is like the emotional, spiritual, physical support person. They're going to be the hands-on person doing hip releases. They're going to be the one saying, it doesn't look like you're progressing in that position. Let's try this. They're going to be the one, hopefully, if your husband says, let's do this or that, they're going to say, let's have a conversation about that instead. Birth, I was just saying, like, I need to get myself ready for this one, because even though I've done it 3 times, it's like out of sight, out of mind, unless you're like actively getting prepared for it. And a doula is in that space often. So they're seeing things, they're learning things, they are constantly continuing education with like, this is working, this is not, or they can see things that your husband's not going to be able to pick up on, even if he is an incredible hands-on like support person. And so just having that third party, like outside removed, like person that can either support your husband if there's a decision that needs to be made, or they can see you in a way that the people, that know you and love you and are there with you in your birth space aren't going to know. Her specifically in my home birth was that mile circuit. And just her knowing exactly what to do and being able to suggest different positions, because when you're in a home birth, you have free range. Like I could go to the toilet, I could go to the birth stool, I could hang my leg off the bed, I could walk the stairs. And she was able to kind of suggest like, this one looks really painful for you, let's try this. Just having that next step every single time I was like, yeah, I like this, I don't like this. She was really incredible for that.
Yeah, doulas are amazing. Especially for first-time moms in a hospital too. Like, I feel like doulas are important at any point in time. Don't get me wrong. But, like, if you are a first-time mom and you are wanting to go unmedicated in the hospital, doulas
it's like a non-negotiable.
Yes, and they're so undervalued, I feel like, too, to where people don't want to either like spend the money or whatever. And I understand to an extent, but that was literally my best decision when it came to my first birth, and that's why it went so smooth too as a first-time mom unmedicated in a hospital too, because she was my biggest advocate, but also my biggest support besides my husband. He was great too, but she was like even telling him like, hey, do this, because of how intimate it is too when you and your husband are obviously going through this, but she was supporting him to support me, which even made the oxytocin flow even more because it was my husband doing these things. So that's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
How, I know that for your current pregnancy right now, your 4th, you are going to do another home birth. Are you preparing any differently, or what does that kind of look like for you right now?
So shout out to a new supplement I'm taking, because I don't want my water to break until I'm pushing. Like that would be the game changer between my 3 births. So my midwife has me taking citrus riboflavonoids, something like that. And it's supposed to strengthen your bag of waters. And because when we look at my 3 births, like I would like that to have not happened in my first and my 3rd. And with my 2nd, everything stayed intact until I was pushing. Textbook, your water should not break until you're pushing, basically. And I see all over the internet like they had to break my waters, and I'm like, nobody had to break your waters. And contractions are way more intense when you don't have your waters as well. And so that is something that I'm doing different to prepare. Shout out to a second supplement that I took with my home birth. It's called Gentle Birth, and it's a tincture. And my placenta, I laughed my placenta out, which was like, my midwife also was like, I've never seen that. It came out like right after my daughter. I had hardly any blood, and the only thing that I had really changed was that tincture. So I like to shout those 2 things out. So hopefully that experience will be different as far as my water not breaking, hours and hours and hours and hours before I need it to.
Yeah.
But really just, preparing my children now that they're older, like mommy's going to be making these noises. And my oldest, he's about to be 8. So he'll be 8 when this baby comes. And he was 4.5, I think, when my daughter was born. And he went to school, and somebody else had a baby sibling born. And he goes, did your mom poop it out or cut it out?
That is so cute.
I doubt any of your classmates know how to answer that question. But I I am in the business of educating my children. I don't overexpose them, but like birth is a really natural thing and it's a really incredible thing for the whole family. And, at an age appropriate level, my children are learning about that. And so that's something that we're going to be heading into in this last trimester, is getting my kids kind of ready again. And, if they want to be involved, great. If they want to sit on the couch with the TV with Papa, that's fine too.
Yeah.
My dad stayed downstairs the whole time until the baby was born, which, was a great place for him. But just kind of letting them get to make those choices about what they're involved in and all of that kind of stuff. So excited to head into that season officially in the third trimester, and probably, hopefully, God willing, gosh, I don't think I can do another pregnancy. I would have 10 more kids, but pregnancy really takes it out of me. And then I'm not the best for my existing family through that season either. So, and as a business owner, I'm like, I don't think I can do this again. So last baby, I'm just kind of mentally preparing for that and excited to see what this one has in store.
Yeah, I definitely want to speak to your kids being there too, because I just think it's amazing that you're exposing them to what birth can look like, so that when they're older and go through having their own kids, they can choose, and it's not like weird, and it's not like medicalized, and it's not that they have to do home birth and that's how it is, but now you have exposed them to the natural, the intimate, the intuition of birth. Can you just kind of speak to how you prepare your kids and the emotional impact of them being there for your births?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about generational trauma and like paving the way. And I have a couple friends that are like second generation crunchy and second generation homeschool. And the birth photographer I hired this time is second generation home birth. Like her mom had all of her siblings at home. And I just think that's so cool to know that, like, again, knowing what your options are. I was raised in a very small town with, I don't want to say anything that would be offensive to anyone listening, but like, we didn't know. There wasn't options. And so just knowing that, like, God willing, I will have daughter-in-laws someday that might look up to me for like, I want to talk about this. That's just so cool to think about. But how do I prepare my kids? Actually, we watched a lot of animals giving birth, because it's less, weird. And you're like, well, there's a cow giving birth, and there's a giraffe, and there's a deer, and, all those kind of things. And that animal's making noises, and that animal doesn't have a lot of lights on them or probes or people touching them and all that kind of stuff. And then I'll show them some birth videos, and where I find those birth videos are just on Instagram. Like, then they're not going to be XXX rated on Instagram either, but you might be able to hear the mom moaning or see a little bit of blood, or, I've seen kids being in the birth water with the moms and there's blood everywhere, and you're like, we all have our different levels of comfortability. But I have the most incredible pictures of my, like I said, 4-year-old that never really left my side when I was in labor with my home birth. And I just know my daughter, she's still obsessed with me. She still comes in our room every night in the middle of the night, and I just know she's going to be that role for me this time. And it's so cool to, again, give them that experience and whatever they're comfortable with. I'm not going to be like, y'all need to watch mom push this baby out, right?
Yeah.
It's just, if they want to be here, great. If they want to be in a different room with a different caregiver, that's fine too. And just having them exposed to that, I think, is really cool. And age appropriately. Like, I'm not, like, here's this and that, and you catch the baby. Like, it's their comfort level, and it's just having that education.
Yeah. And I love that you are obviously giving them the option too. Like, if you want to be here, great. And if you don't, great. That's fine. Like, but just know that this is what it could look like. And it's hard to tell what it will truly look like and sound like until you're there. But here's what it could look like. I think that's great. And I'm sure, like, as a mom too, like, looking back, because sometimes when you're in the moment of birth, everything around you is just kind of, you're just blacked out a little bit because you're in labor land. But looking back at, like, photos and stuff too, I'm sure that's so special, just seeing how your kids are really trying to be there and care for you too, even if it's in the littlest ways.
Yeah, for sure.
And, you had said too that you're big on just like educating yourself and preparing. What would you say to a first-time mom who feels overwhelmed and just doesn't really know where to start?
Yeah, I think that we touched on a little bit, but knowing that it's good and you should invest in something outside of the hospital system. There might be a 25-minute birth class at the hospital, and there might be a free webinar that you found on Instagram, and those things are great, but you're going to invest in a car seat. You're going to invest in wraps and carriers. You're going to invest in state of the heart, all the things. You know, the hottest car seats are $600 now. It's like crazy. You're going to make those choices without thinking about it. You probably spent tens of thousands of dollars on your wedding. Like, this is something that is truly going to be pivotal in your womanhood, in your motherhood. If you have things happen to you and you don't understand what's happening, that is trauma that you're going to carry into postpartum, into like many, many, many years down the road. I talk to moms all of the time and you're like, oh gosh, that could have been prevented. That is not something to mess with or something that I take lightly. And so it might feel like an investment, but there are courses out there that are $100 or $50, or find something that is going to be an outside of the hospital system educational piece. Whether you want to go unmedicated or whether you want to schedule an induction, whatever floats your boat, but like have some kind of educational piece. Have a conversation with a mom. Go out to breakfast with someone who's had 4 different birth stories and let them share them all with you, because I think so often we're just like out of sight, out of mind. Like, I'm just going to trust my doctor, and I don't think any good comes from that. Whether you love your doctor or not, you know, just having that little piece of outside education and those outside success stories will make a huge difference in your experience to be able to ask the right questions. Whether your partner is super supportive or not, like, it is your job to know that this is your body. This is going to be your birth story for the rest of your life. And if things happen to you that you're not prepared for, which they might, there's a real good chance. I think that just having that educational piece is the world of a difference in the perspective of what you're taking away from that day.
Yeah, that's really good. And a lot of times too, if you invest in a course or a book or whatever, normally that's just buying it one time, and then you have that for as many births as you have too. So making that investment early really could pay off at the end. And then if you feel like, oh, well, I did this course, but it didn't really prepare me as well as I felt like I did, then you can always get supplemental stuff as well. So I think that's really, really important, because a lot of times we do think that our provider is the one that should be educating us and preparing us for all of these things. Unfortunately, that's just not how it works.
And when you're having, you know, a 10-minute appointment where you're getting your blood pressure and your weight and the baby's heartbeat, there's just not a lot of time for those things to be discussed or educated about.
Yeah, and obviously with a home birth, it's different, because I really felt like my midwife did really help to try to educate me, but also you should take ownership over your birth. It's not your midwife's birth. It's not your doctor's birth. It's not your husband's birth. It's not your doula's birth. It's nobody's birth but your own. And so taking ownership over that really helps you feel more empowered anyways and educated going in. So I love that.
For sure.
What word of encouragement would you say to a mom who is considering home birth after having a hospital birth?
Oh gosh, look for the success stories. Look for the wins. Like, go talk to more moms that had home births, and don't go down the rabbit hole of the influencer that free birthed and didn't have a single person, whatever was a headline 2 weeks ago. Really just go find the evidence that, you know, for a healthy mom, healthy baby, everything on track pregnancy, a home birth is an incredible option for you. Don't let the one person that didn't have a good experience and went viral, you know, be the reason that you don't do this. And like we said earlier, a good midwife, again, interview your midwives, make sure they are currently practicing and understanding of all of the things. They're going to know in the heat of the moment, like, hey, this is a hospital transfer, or, you know, do you even want to go to the hospital and get an epidural? Like, people transfer for pain management sometimes. Like, those are all decisions you get to make in the heat of the moment. Like, it's not like an end all be all. Midwives know how to resuscitate. Like, they're like all of those different things that, you know, could go wrong. Like, a lot of the hemorrhaging, like stitching up, like midwives can do those kinds of things. And sometimes I think if we're not educated, they're just like, oh, the midwives are just there for show. And what if I need XYZ? Like, a lot of midwives can do a lot of those things that we don't think about. They are basically doctors. Like, and I asked my midwife, I don't know if this is for everyone, but my midwife brings a second midwife, because after the birth, there's 2 patients. Like, if something were happening to me and the baby at the same time, she's only one individual. And so I don't know if that's across the board, but that's something to think about too. Like, asking those questions, like, did you have a second shooter at your wedding? There's reasons for these things. And so I'm just having those right questions. And then, like I said, looking for the success stories. And I think that's what the business of being born did for me. I spent the next 10 years looking for bias confirmations to say, like, this is something that I can do down the road versus like being sketched out by it and whatever else.
Yes, no, that's awesome. And I'm excited too because we are going to be doing another episode just talking all about your passion project of this prenatal breastfeeding course, which I think is a game changer for a lot of moms. So we're not going to get much into that right now because we're going to record another episode for that. But I am just so excited to do that. But I end my show with one question for every mom, and that is, if you could speak one piece of empowering wisdom into the hearts of the mothers listening, what would that be?
You are capable. Your body has everything it needs to give birth. And that was, something that was really something that I held on to. Like, the Lord created us to equip us to do this, and people have been doing it for centuries before us. And so don't let modern medicine dictate what's going to happen to you. And if you want to give birth in a hospital setting, by all means, please do. But trust your body. Most of us, again, there are the one-off situations where the baby might be measuring big or your pelvis is small. Like, those kinds of things are not a reason to take intervention. Like, ask the right questions, and your body is more than capable of giving birth.
Yes, that is so good. And Brittany, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on Her Birth, Her Story.
Thanks for having me.
Wow, I loved listening to her progressions of her birth, and I can't wait to hear her fourth birth story when that happens. I love how she's always been a strong advocate for physiological birth and just educating yourself, doing your research, and being able to empower yourself through birth, no matter if it's how you expected it to be or not. I really just know that these stories are going to empower you and spark curiosity to help you ask questions so that you feel empowered in your birth. If this episode of Her Birth, Her Story inspired you or encouraged you in any way, please make sure to share it with a mama who needs to hear it. And don't forget to like, rate, review the show, and subscribe so that we can get this episode out to as many mamas as possible. And don't forget, this is your body, your baby, and your birth, and we are reclaiming birth one story at a time.